It's a familiar story, one that I've seen play out so many times. You dream for months and years of getting an RV and traveling full-time on the road, and you get out there and it's going really well. There's some challenges, there's some learning curve, but you're having a really good time. And then about 6 months into this life, boom, you hit a wall. It's no longer fun anymore. And when this happens, it's easy to think that maybe you're not cut out for RV life, but the reality is that this is pretty much expected. There's a dirty secret when it comes to RVing, and frankly to a lot of life. The time when most people want to quit is about 6 months in. Now, this not only applies to RVing, it has a lot to do with how humans operate and psychology and the way our emotions work and the way we grow and change or don't. So why is that? Why is 6 months a magic number? Well, it has to do with something called the Hedonic Treadmill. What's that? The Hedonic Treadmill is a psychological principle that has to do with how we feel about happiness. Hedonic comes from that same root as hedonism or pleasure or joy. So basically, the principle of the Hedonic Treadmill is that over time, we kind of have a happiness set point, each and every one of us. We basically have a temperament or an attitude where we're roughly about as happy as we are at baseline. Now, when we think about big life changes, things like winning the lottery, meeting our true love, getting our dream career, or something like going on the road, traveling full-time in an RV could be somebody's dream. We tend to think that these great big life events are going to happen for us, and then it's going to change our life and we're going to be happier forever. But strangely, that is actually not how human beings operate. Instead, all of us tend to be a certain amount of happy or unhappy at baseline based on our temperament. And while large life events can bump us down or up, depending on whether it's a good or a bad thing that happens to us, over time, we tend to regress back to that mean, to that average level of happiness. And that process, that inevitability, that return to that average level of happiness is called the hedonic treadmill. Your level of baseline happiness is very individual. Some people are very grumpy at baseline, some people are very positive at baseline, and there's obviously tons of people who are in between. And while that baseline level of happiness is unique to each person, what isn't unique is actually the time intervals at which we tend to regress back to our baseline. I'll tell you, looking at large samples of people, looking at the data, the vast majority of people tend to have a huge swing back to their baseline happiness at 6 months. And so this is sometimes known in lay terms as the honeymoon period. So let's say that you're very unhappy and you're stuck in a grind and you're dreaming of travel and RV life as an escape from your baseline unhappiness and the drudgery and stress that you're feeling. Which, I mean, this is a common thing. I hear that a lot. I hear a lot of people dreaming of travel or living in an RV and being on the road, like that's their dream. Well, if you're unhappy at baseline, and it isn't necessarily your circumstances, if you have an unhappy temperament, if you've always been unhappy, and you find that you really like travel and it's really exciting and it's worked out the way you want it to be, you will get a boost from that for about 6 months. And then if there are other issues, if there are other things in the way of your happiness, you're going to regress back to your old way of being. So I will say one thing though, there are circumstances where you're stuck in a dead-end job or you're stuck in a circumstance that isn't good for you, that's acting as a lowering of your baseline happiness at default, and getting away from that can actually benefit you. But if you look at a life that's generally unhappy, if you have a bad outlook, if you're a negative person, if you are somebody who always finds the dark side of everything, you might indeed find this hedonic treadmill gives you that honeymoon effect for about 6 months of full-time travel. And then after that, you're on your own. It's a familiar story, one that I've seen play out so many times. You dream for months and years of getting an RV and traveling full-time on the road, and you get out there and it's going really well. There's some challenges, there's some learning curve, but you're having a really good time. And then about 6 months into this life, boom, you hit a wall. It's no longer fun anymore. And when this happens, it's easy to think that maybe you're not cut out for RV life or there's something fundamentally ill-suited for you. But the reality is that this is pretty much expected. This is the way that human beings operate. And if you can get past the 6-month slump when it comes to RVing and frankly all major life changes, then that's how you know you'll probably make it through for the duration. Anyway, if you've made it through the first 6 months of full-timing and you still like it, then congratulations, you're probably a good fit for this. The newness has worn off, the shiny excitement of it, and this is probably how you're gonna feel about this life. They have found that people also tend to hedonically have another big bump at 1 year and and 2 years as well. But a lot of people within that first 6 months. But I will say another thing about this adjustment curve and the learning curve in general is that it goes for the adaptation and the stresses as well. So you might actually find that the first 6 months to 2 years are incredibly difficult because there's a lot to learn and a lot to adjust to in a negative way as well. I guess the moral of the story is that you won't know how you actually feel about any major life change, including full-time travel, including RVing, until you've been doing it for at least 6 months, and in some situations and with some people up to 2 years. So if you made it 6 months full-timing and you're still happy, congratulations, you're doing great. This is probably a good decision here. And especially if you've made it a couple of years, you know what it is, you know how it feels, and you've gotten used to it. And as I'm sitting here, I've been doing this for over a year now. And definitely there's been challenges and there's been a learning curve, especially because in addition to actually just traveling and living, I've been documenting it and getting used to YouTube as well. But it feels like I'm entering another chapter in the second year, and I'm excited to see what this second year holds. I will be here posting videos for you all so you can see it and you can learn and grow along with me. But yeah, Hedonic Treadmill. Really interesting concept, and I found that once I learned about it, I saw it in every aspect of my life. I saw it in my marriage, I saw it in my jobs, I saw it obviously in full-time travel. It's a real thing, and I do think that's why, for example, people recommend that you date for a while before you get married or live together, things like that, because you want that newness to wear off. You want to see, am I happy because this is new, or am I happy because this is good for me? It was great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.